Rose, I see you have your hand up. Is there something I can help you with?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, there are a whole lot of people who are trying to get into this meeting, but apparently the link is not working.
I'm not sure because we have a lot of people that are already in the meeting.
I've got 19 attendees in the meeting.
Right.
Okay, well, I'll try and send them something to, is it the link that's on the letter that we got in the mail?
It's also on our website.
Or you could send the one that you got as well, Rose.
Yeah, I can't seem to, it's not your problem, it's mine. I can't seem to figure out how to minimize my Zoom so I can see other things. But yeah.
If they go to the Janet, if they just go to the UG website, they'll be able to find it. What should
yes.
they go to? Janet,
Okay.
where should they go to? The urban planning?
They need to go to either that, or I can email one of them.
Yeah, if you could, yeah, can you email it to me, Janet? It's rosecoco@gmail.com.
Hang on, I'm not in my email. Hold on.
Okay.
We are live on YouTube, so that they can watch that way. They just wouldn't be able to participate.
Thank you.
And other than that, I think we are good from my end. Janet, I have returned host to you.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Thank you so
Rose,
much,
what's
guys.
your email?
Rose, ROSEKOCO @gmail.com.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Janet, are you ready now?
No, I've got to find the document and send it over to her.
No problem.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to go now. We are live on UGTV.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I want to welcome everybody to the April 11th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. My name is Jeff Carson. I'll be serving as chair of tonight's meeting. I'll make a few introductions before we start the meeting. Gunnar Hand is with us tonight. He's the director of the Land Use and Urban Planning Department with Unified Government. We also have Janet Parker, the executive assistant to the Department of Land Use and Urban Planning, along with Byron Toy, who is also a staff planner with Urban Planning. Mr. James Malloy is in the UG lobby assisting our in-person participants tonight. We also have Patrick Waters, legal counsel for the Unified Government, also on hand with us. We have the following Unified Government commissioners present for Board of Zoning Appeals. Board of Zoning Appeals commissioners: Commissioner James Ernst, Jake Miller, Commissioner Joseph Strauss, Commissioner Dwayne Beth, Commissioner Mark Muller, and Commissioner Aaron Ward. And we do want to extend a welcome to Commissioner Dwayne Beth on his first meeting. So thank you for being with us tonight, and thank you for your service to the commission. So with that, I will turn the meeting over to Secretary Parker, who will read the opening statement on how we're going to run tonight's meeting.
We would like to welcome those participating by telephone, Zoom, or in the lobby of this building to the meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Members of the Board of Zoning Appeals are participating remotely by Zoom, and Mr. Jeff Carson is serving as chairman this evening. Please note the following instructions for the meeting. If you are joining by Zoom video, please make sure you have an appropriate background and plan to stay visible during the meeting. Board members, use the raise your hand feature when you want to speak. And after Chairman Carson recognizes you, please unmute your microphone and state your name when you begin to speak. If you need to recuse or if you need a break, use the raise your hand feature. For those attending the meeting this evening, please use the raise your hand feature if you want to speak on an application. After the chairman recognizes you, Please state your name and address and make your comments. If you are having issues getting in the Zoom meeting, please email planninginfo@wycokck.org and let Secretary Parker know. Proper meeting decorum is expected of all participating in the meeting, and anyone who fails to act properly may be removed from the meeting. The city reserves the right to discontinue a meeting if any improper behavior occurs, which prevents the uninterrupted conduct of business. The format for this evening's meeting is as follows. The applicant will make the opening statement explaining the proposal. The applicant will be given 15 minutes to present their case, which includes the applicant, consultants, and other members of the applicant's team. Members of the board will then address any questions they may have to the applicant. Any persons wishing to speak in favor will be recognized and allowed to do so at that time. Then those persons in opposition will be recognized to make their statements and ask questions, with each member of the public being given 5 minutes to express their opinions. Time may not be shared between speakers. A speaker's time may be extended in 5-minute intervals by a 2/3 majority vote of the board. The applicant will then answer any questions and make a closing statement. The public hearing portion of the meeting will be closed, and the public will only be allowed to address the board if a question is directed to them. The staff will make their recommendation. The board will discuss the application and make their decision with a brief statement of the reason for the motion preceding the making of the motion. Motions to approve shall include the staff stipulations unless otherwise stated in the motion. Our first application tonight is BOZA 2022-001, Lee Walker, for property at 4800 Washington Avenue. At this time, does any member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant available? Lee Walker? I see Anna Cole has her hand up. Ms. Cole, are you representing Lee Walker?
No, sir, I'm sorry. I did not mean to have my hand up for this agenda item. I apologize.
All right, thank you. Lee Walker, are you in the audience? If you would, please raise your hand so we can recognize you. Lee Walker. Okay, Janet, do we want to just push that to the bottom of the agenda and move on to the next case? Go ahead, you're muted.
I'm sorry,
right.
let's do that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we will move on to our next application, which is BOZA 2022-016, Mark Mobley with Sunflower Development Group for properties at 10 South Alec, 525 and 529 Central Avenue. At this time, does any member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
Mr. Chairman, did you want to make any comments about this application before we get started?
I will when we get ready to go to comment.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Mobley, we've got you queued up to speak. Go ahead and please give us your name and address and tell us what you're here tonight for.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you. Mark Mobley, Sunflower Development Group, 1125 Grand Boulevard, Suite 202, Kansas City, Missouri, 64106. I'll start out by apologizing. I am on family vacation and sitting in a hotel room. If my Wi-Fi gets a little shaky, I have Gretchen Blaine on with me as well. Would ask that she be promoted to presenter. She's with Generator Studios and will jump in if for some reason I get bumped off.
Thank you.
Ms. Parker, I don't believe I have presentation capability, and I'd like to do that.
Okay, I'll get you set here in just a second.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you. She's
Okay,
getting you
I'm going
promoted over to give you the rights to be able to do so.
Okay, and you should
Thank
be
you.
good
Last
to
time
go
this happened,
now.
I got bumped off. That's
You should be
perfect.
good now.
Okay, and does my 15 minutes start now, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, so we can see your screen. So go ahead.
Very good. Well, thank you for the opportunity. You might recall our project was in front of the Planning Commission a couple of weeks ago for consideration of a number of items, including a change of zone, a master plan amendment, and a vacation of right-of-way. Those items passed with a 6-1 approval. We're coming back in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals today with a request for a parking variance on our project. Because you've heard at length detail of our project, I will buzz through the high points and get right into the meat of the variance request, but obviously happy to answer any questions on the project in general. So those that are new to the Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission, this is the site as it sits today. This is as if you were standing outside of Chicago's at the corner of 6th and Central. The wooded area with the trees is the project site for the proposed apartment project. Some details about the project. It is a $44 million investment in downtown Kansas City, Kansas. We intend to build 142 market rate apartment rental units. Of those, there'll be 23 studio units, 102 one-bedroom units, and 17 two-bedroom units. And that's important later in my presentation as we look at the parking count. We will be displacing no residents or businesses. As we presented a few weeks ago, the existing sight lines are maintained for the surrounding businesses and homeowners. We intend to make a major investment in the surrounding utilities, particularly the aging sewer lines. As a requirement, we engaged a third-party traffic study that found our project has minimal impact on the daily traffic, and the UG engaged their own third-party traffic reviewer to review our study. We believe that our project will spur improvements for both pedestrian and vehicle access at the center of at the intersection of 6th and Central. We believe our project fills a big market rate multifamily housing gap that exists in this area today, specifically in downtown KCK. And then lastly, with the increase in the number of residents, we believe that drives economic activity to the local businesses, especially the small businesses in the immediate area, Chicago's and Slaps and Split Log, for example, which just increases the sales tax base and as economic development attracts new businesses to the area. So we'll jump right into it. This is a overhead view of the project site that we would intend to develop. You can see, just for reference, we've marked a couple of, actually 3 places I mentioned earlier, Chicago's, Slaps, and Split Log, and then given you a couple of 3 views here, A, B, and C, shown on the right to give you an idea of the corridor views. Zooming in a little bit to show a rendering of the project footprint and some of the parking that is located outside of that project footprint. Important to note that we've got 16 surface parking spots located on the property. We also have proposed 19 parking spots outside of the property on the north side of Alec. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. I want to point out on 6th Street, there is an entrance into the building for vehicles into a parking garage. And then as you drive on around Alec, there's a lower level entrance into the parking garage. And as you come up the hill, there's an upper level entrance into the 2nd level parking garage. Here is a look at that 1st level parking garage and that 2nd level parking garage. The 1st level has 59 stalls. The 2nd level has 61 stalls. And I'll come back to those numbers here in a minute. And actually right now. So the reason we're in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals tonight is because the code states that we shall have 1 parking space for each dwelling unit that is 1 bedroom or less. We shall have 1.5 parking spaces for each dwelling unit that is 2 bedrooms or more. And so if we apply that math to our proposed unit mix, it results in 151 parking spaces being required on our project site. Now, the original parking plan we submitted to staff showed those 59 spaces in the garage, 1st level, 61 spaces in the garage, 2nd level, the 16 spaces on the surface lot on the property, and the 19 spaces on Alec. So no parking variance was needed in our understanding, which is why we did not present to the BOZA prior to Planning Commission a few weeks ago. However, as we began to work with UG staff, we learned that the 19 proposed parking spaces on the north side of Alec that are not on our property, even though we are including them as part of our project and our budget, could not be counted in our parking count. And so we had to remove those. And so by removing those 19 spaces without changing our unit mix, bullet 1 and bullet 2 are the same. Our revised parking plan cuts out those 19 spaces and brings us down to 136 total spaces. And that's a parking variance of 15 spaces. And that's what we're here requesting tonight. However, the story doesn't end there, because we don't believe that 136 spaces is enough for us to properly lease the building. We've heard the very vocal concerns from the neighbors about the potential for our residents parking on the street because we don't have enough parking. And so what we've worked with Gunnar and his staff is the idea to continue to do the 19 proposed parking spaces on the street on the north side of Alec. And in fact, we've studied an additional 5 parallel parking spaces on around Alec until we get to an elevation change that would be too dangerous. That would be still part of our project budget, but they would potentially be a parking district. We would work with the planning staff on how those would be managed. We really like this because it gives the ability for these spaces to be used by multiple different users, which is really good urban development. Imagine a patron of split log parking there in the morning, a Slaps patron parking at lunch, a Chicago's patron parking in happy hour, and then overflow parking for our residents coming home in the evening through the early morning. And so you could really imagine 3 to 4 different uses for an individual parking space. And so we continue to plan to build that, and we'll continue to work with the staff on how best to manage that, whether it be in a formal parking district or just signage and monitoring. But again, it doesn't end there because what we want to do is make sure that we never have to worry about needing parking. And so we've been working with an adjacent property owner, and I'll bring your attention to our site here, just to the west, where there's property owned by a gentleman we've been talking with at length and have a verbal agreement to lease parking on his property if and when needed. I will tell you, nothing has been signed. It's a verbal handshake agreement, but that gentleman has been very supportive of our project. He's spoken publicly at the Planning Commission for the project, and we believe that will be there if and when it is needed. So we think that there can be 30 up to 30 spaces in that on that property if needed. In fact, the gentleman's plan was always to use that as parking for the retail in this area if needed. It hasn't, in fact, been needed to date. And so visiting back to the slide I showed earlier, bullet 1 stays the same. We've not changed our unit mix, so 151 spaces are still required. So right now, we're still proposing on site our 59 spaces on the first level, our 61 spaces on the second level, our 16 spaces on the surface lot for the 136 spaces. But then we also intend to either pay for and or provide an additional 54 spaces, which would be the 19 pull-in spaces on Alec, the 5 parallel spaces on Alec, and the approximately 30 private spaces in a surface lot that we would lease as needed and pass that cost along to our project. And so we continue to need a parking variance of 15 spaces, even though we do intend to provide 190 total spaces when only 151 are required. The last thing I might mention on our parking, it is my understanding, although it has not been codified and passed, that the parking code is likely to be amended soon. That will change it to 1 parking space being required for 1 dwelling unit. That would bring our total requirement down to 142. We would still need a variance, but I would mention that this is an urban project. We do intend, or we expect, to have residents who likely won't have a car or won't have the number of cars per unit that you would see in a typical suburban project. And we've got numerous examples of that in our projects around the metro area. Happy to run through any others. I've got these up here so you can see a little bit more about the project. This is the first level of the project for the units, which would be the 3rd level. This is the 4th through 7th level, standard unit count mix. And this is our top level, which is units with a pool and outside space. Quick view, which was opening the presentation, coming from the east. A view as if you put a drone up above split log. And that concludes the presentation. Happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the commission to the applicant? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to this parking request tonight? We will be talking about the parking variance only. This is not about the project itself. So comments tonight will be included to only include the request for the parking variance. So I'm going to start with Stephen. I'm going to apologize if I mess up the name. Sadukum. I've got you queued up, ready to speak. Go ahead. Please give us your name and address.
Hi, Stephen Sudicum here.
Sudicum.
I am the property owner of a property within 200 feet of the project on 6th Street. And I am speaking in opposition. I'd like to draw Board of Zoning appeal to the comments by staff starting on page 5 of the staff report titled Staff Comments and Suggestions. In paragraph 1, I'll note that the date of March 31st is no longer valid. Not a big deal, but I just wanted to point that out. Paragraph number 2. Hope you all are with me. Let me know if you're not. The developer and the UG staff appear to have a conflicting perspective regarding a suitable location for ADA parking in paragraph 2. We would hope that a resolution of this issue would be achieved before approving such a variance. In paragraph 3, it appears that a county engineer may be asked to review a proposal for continuing striped parallel parking along South Alec, but then the applicant's engineer is saying that the proposal would impact safe egress from the parking garage. And we would hope that resolution of this issue would be achieved before approving such a variance. In paragraph 4 of the staff comments and suggestions, we note that the south of the proposed development along 6th Street, a resident-only parking district would not work as proposed, since the Old Russian Church has a rotating cast of customers who are not residents. And it's a decent suggestion. I actually made the same mistake recommending resident-only parking district in a discussion with folks in the neighborhood. I was advised it wouldn't work, and why. Not to say that we can't put our heads together and come up with a solution, but that hasn't happened yet. Paragraph 5 of staff comments and suggestions. Decoupling parking from monthly rents will create nothing more but residents seeking on-street parking. Residents would be financially incentivized not to use the parking garage. And that is a problem for residents on trying to save a buck. Why should they pay for parking when they can just park on the street? And that creates a problem for the nearby residents, which I am not one of, but I respect them and I listen to them, and that's what I'm here to represent. So despite paragraph 2 and 3 of staff comments where the developer and our county engineers have stated differences, planning department engineers say no plan revision is required before recommending approval, which I find counterintuitive.
Sir, excuse me, you have 1 minute.
And despite the unresolved items noted by staff in paragraphs 2 and 3, and Oh, I'm sorry. While I appreciate the apparent efforts of planning staff to think outside the box of the development of a resident-only parking solution, this has not been done so far, and as proposed would need revision in order to accommodate customers attending classes at the Old Russian Church. You all, as representatives of our planning commission, recommended for approval changes zone to R6 development. We're going to have to agree to disagree about that, but please, I'm asking you not to add insult to injury by approving this parking variance request that would result in fewer parking spaces than apartments and would financially incentivize residents not to use the parking garage. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Next up, I have Karen and Brad Human.
Hello.
Yes.
This is Karen.
Hi.
Brad and I live right next door to the proposed development on 6th Street. And this is going to create a lot of hardship for us. Just in terms of parking, the city staff report claims that the granting of the permit for the variance will not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. Well, let me tell you, we do not have any off-street parking associated with our home. We have to park on the street. The street already gets fairly full of just residents and their neighbors. We're not against businesses and development. We worked with Rachel when she wanted to make sure that her clients could park for classes at her facility. But this thing has, I mean, the first place they're going to park is in front of our house. We have no other options of where to park. So it really will adversely affect us. The next thing I'd like to point out is that the developer is claiming that they're going to eventually have the surface parking lot, which, while that's not under discussion for tonight, it brings a surface parking lot into our residential part of our neighborhood. And according to the staff report, the spirit intent of zoning ordinance is to ensure that there's enough parking for residents based on a 2-car household. Well, if you guys pass this variance, you've basically taken our ability to park at our 2-car household away from us. They also go on to say that the master plan is supposed to minimize surface parking lots, but here we have a developer promising that there'll be more surface parking across the street. And then that's just a vague plan anyway. It would still have to pass your board. I would also like to point out that the traffic study that the developer had done clearly states that they plan to raise our house. Now, this hasn't been admitted publicly, but nobody at the planning department will answer our question. We're afraid that the city is just going to take our property and force us out. So the plan actually does replace us. So the fact that there's minimal impact from this development is just not true. Also, the idea that these people are going to be riding bikes and walking more than driving just doesn't fit the census data for 66101, our zip code. I looked up the data, and the latest community survey data, there's more than 2 cars per worker in our zip code. And like 87% of people on our zip code drive to work. Only 0.3%, I think it was, work from home. Oh no, I'm sorry, 3.6% work from home. 2.8% use public transit. 53.5% work outside the community. This is just in our zip code. So to claim that this is going to be a building of people who don't drive, I think is cherry picking data from maybe downtown or midtown Kansas City, but it's certainly not the case for infrastructure and habits in Wyandotte County. The street, the bump out that the developers show on their plan is right adjacent to the front of our property. So we won't even be able to put our car there, even if there is a space, because it'll,
Ma'am, you have 1 minute.
okay, it'll block the road. And finally, all of these entrances and exits and proposed new parking lots are going to create a traffic snarl in less than half a block on 6th Street. And I don't know if the board members there have read the review by the third party of the traffic study, but that engineer found a lot of problems. And I would urge you, before you pass this, to go back and read through that. There are a lot of ripple effects that are going to happen if you pass this, and it's going to affect other neighbors, other neighborhoods. I just urge you to not pass this tonight and to really study it, because we're hearing all these plans and sort of half promises.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, your time is up.
That's fine.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Rose.
Unmute.
There you go.
Hi, this is Rose Iltz. I live at 506 North 4th Street. I am lucky enough to be right on the bluffs and overlook I-70 and then the beautiful river. I just wanted to say a couple of things. Stephen and Karen have already done a great job of talking about all the problems with this project with regard to parking. It's kind of a no-brainer. If you go up there and drive around in the evening or early morning, you can see that there is no available parking space on the streets. There will be overflow parking from this development onto the streets, which will mean that people that live there in their own homes, their owner-occupied homes, will be aced out on parking. I know that's not the developer's concern, but it should be your concern. And I would urge you to vote no on this variance. Also, I have had experience with this developer in the past when I lived over in Kansas City, Missouri, and they were very untrustworthy, gave us a lot of misinformation and disinformation. So I don't put much stock in their plans to, like rent that extra parking lot, things like that. And besides, those should not be counted since they're off-site spaces to help them make up their numbers. And that's it. I'm just asking you to vote against this variance.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Okay, we'll now go to Buck Hessel. Buck Hessel.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir. Go
Okay.
ahead, give us your name and address, please.
My name is Buck Hessel. I live at 31 South Alec Street, Kansas City, Kansas.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm all for development, just not at this scale in a tiny plot of land like this. This project should be twice the size and twice the height, combined with retail amenities a block west in that huge vacant lot at 7th and Central.
Okay, sir, are you talking about parking or are you talking about the overall project?
I'm talking about both.
Well, right now, the only thing we're going to hear is
Okay.
comments about the parking. if you would,
In
please.
regards to the parking,
Yes, thank you.
the one of the major flaws I saw were the 5 spaces on the curb of South Halleck Street. When you allow cars to park there, it's gonna obscure that exit in and out on Halleck Street, and then there's no way 2 cars can pass where a fire engine can come up there if we have a fire or something like that. It's just clogged up, and I hope you vote no on this, because they're just asking for too much. I don't believe a lot of the things that they're saying. It seems like the UG has just given, and they just keep taking. So that's all I have. And my wife is here also, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hessel. Did
Thank you.
Mrs. Hessel want to speak or not?
Yes, of course I want to speak. My name is Jerry Mulder Hessel. I live at 31 South Hollick Street, right up the hill from the proposed 505 Central Apartment Complex. We, my husband and I, do not support this variance because it violates the city code. We do not support the zoning change to higher density either. The zoning change has not
Okay,
been
ma'am, we're not
approved.
talking about the zoning change tonight.
Well,
We're
let me
talking
just
about
say
the
this,
parking
the zoning
variance.
change has not been approved by.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hessel, I have to cut you off because we're only here to talk about the parking variance. So I'm sorry. We're going to go now to Veronica Fernandez. Veronica Fernandez.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Go ahead and give us your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Veronica Fernandez. I live for the last 12 years on 31st South Hallock Street. And tonight I would like to speak for my Hispanic community that unfortunately any of the paperwork plans from UG or from the company have been coming in Spanish. We are so sad because you have more than 50% of the Hispanic community living around the 250 feet around the area. It's so sad that the 12 years I have lived here, I have kids that go to school, and the transportation told me all these years that they cannot come and get my kids because there's not enough space in this street to get a bus inside of the street. But you're allowing other people to come and have all this space that I have been denied. We definitely, all of us as a Hispanic community feel very, very unhappy. And even, I'm sorry, my English is not the best.
That's okay. You're doing fine.
It doesn't feel, it just doesn't feel good that we don't have any paper on Spanish, and it just doesn't feel right. We have struggled a lot on the past with in winter time with the space we have. We even have car accidents just being 2 or 3 neighbors in here. But after all, I hope so. After tonight, we get all this paperwork in Spanish. And also, it's so sad, but it's, you know, after all these years and my kids growing in here, I hope if this happens, my house price go up and finally I can move out of here, because this is a very, very high crime area. Like I have to, the parking, especially right here on that curve, at least 5 times a week where you see things that it should have been happened. So I'll wish all the luck to these builders, to all these people, because maybe I get to go and I'll be so happy to do that. But good luck if they, but we definitely are against the proposal.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting and we'll go over to staff. I'm sorry, we'll go back. I'm sorry, go ahead, Janet.
Mr. Chairman, I need to ask if there is anyone in the lobby.
Oh, yes,
that
I'm sorry.
wishes
Thank you.
to speak.
Is there anyone in the City Hall lobby that wants to speak to this case? Okay, seeing that, I did see a hand go up by Anna Cole, so I will go back to public. Anna Cole.
Hi, thank you. So my name is Anna Cole, and I live at 245 Orchard Street, about 3 blocks north of this proposed project. I've lived here for 12 years, and I don't think any of us are opposed to new development in Waco. That's wonderful to see. So since we're talking specifically about parking, I want to mention Kansas statute 12759, and it's section E, and bear with me because I forgot my glasses. Essentially, I think that the previous speakers before me really highlighted that this is a detriment to our way of life. So let me quote the section E here from our statutes. Sorry, section C, and I'll say that again. Statute is 12759. For the strict application of provisions of the zoning regulations of which variance is requested will constitute unnecessary hardship from the property owner represented in the application. Section D, that the variance desired will not adversely affect the public health. Fire trucks were mentioned, safety, fire trucks, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare. I believe that this parking variance does indeed do that. Moreover, it is presumptive, as the full commission has not approved the project that it is attached to, that it's for. So I'm unsure, and I don't know all of our, I'm not a planner, all of the processes with that, but I don't understand how you can approve a parking variance for something that had a project that has yet to be approved and may not still get approved in its capacity, in this capacity that the developers are asking for. It may be scaled down. We don't know that yet. So respectfully, I ask you to vote no. Our citizens have not really been aware of this, and they are now becoming aware of this. And I know my friends that own businesses over there support it. If I owned a business over there, I would support it. And I do support a development there. I support density there. But how much density, we don't know yet. So please wait to pass this or approve this. Please deny this right now. There are more citizens that have not been heard yet. Additionally, and lastly, Karen Human mentioned her house being raised. It does sort of essentially this zoning in the PDF. It basically that her house is gone, and she cannot. Our own citizen cannot get any information from our government about her house being torn down. That's not okay. So please, let's not jump the gun. Yes, let's welcome development, but please do not jump the gun and do it this way. Let's do it a smarter way. There's a way to meet in the middle. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our last speaker will be Rachel Mcmeechan. Rachel Mcmeechan.
Hi, thank you. Sorry I was joining late. I was working and just found some time to join the meeting.
Can we get your address, please, Rachel?
Yes, I live at 556 Lowell Avenue. I am basically up the street from this development, 5 doors up. I run a business out of the place that I live, which is the old Russian Orthodox Church on the top of the hill. It is a dance and aerial acrobatic studio. If this parking variation goes through, I'm going to lose my business. The fact that they want to push so many more cars into the street would push away any of my customers being able to find a reasonable place to park so that I could have a livelihood. This area can't handle it. Just 6th Street alone, I want to say of the 8 or 9 houses, each house has 2 to 4 cars in each house, and there's only a few driveways. So most of these cars, including work trucks, vans, household cars, clog the street as it is. To have overflow is just insane to me. Like coming home from work this afternoon, 4:45, coming off of the highway, pulling onto 6th Street at Central, it took me about 10 minutes to make a right-hand turn onto Central to be able to turn up Tremont to come to my house. But there was traffic backed up Tremont. I actually was super late to where I was going, and it was because the traffic on Central at 4:45 in the afternoon with just our current residents was crazy pants. Like I can't even picture it. Like I, as a resident, I live here, say, please no. me as a business owner say, please no, this would be a hardship for me to be able to make a living if this were to pass, this parking variation. And that's all I have to say at the moment.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will close the public portion of the meeting. We'll go back to the applicant. Mr. Mobley, anything you want to address in terms of the neighbors' concerns with parking or any of the other comments that were brought up?
Yeah, a handful of items here. First off, we're not going to tear down someone's home. If that's in a third-party traffic study that was not intentional, it is not our proposal. So I would hope that that would be pretty obvious that we're not trying to hide that over the many, many public meetings that we've had. So apologies if that is in a third-party report, and we're happy to correct that if need be. There are some comments in the staff report as it relates to ADA spaces. It's not the number of them, it's the location. I think the staff wants us to move them to the other side of the parking lot, which would be about 10 feet. We believe that where they're located actually provides a better accessibility to the building. We've commented back to the staff on that, and they've still provided their recommendation of approval. City engineer has said that the parallel spaces present a safety hazard. That's why we're only proposing 5. I believe the staff report has proposed more. And so we've actually said no. We want to keep it a safe situation for the folks on Alec, and so we've only done that. There's a handful of other items, decoupling parking from monthly rents. We don't typically include parking in the rents because we have a lot of folks that don't have a car. And we've done a number of different developments where we've proven that to be true. And so we don't necessarily want to penalize someone in their rent who doesn't need a parking space that we build in a parking garage. Some folks do have a car. There are folks that do have 2 cars, and that's why the 1.5 parking spaces is part of the statute today. And that allows people to determine if they want to park in the surface lot that we're providing or the parking garage as well. There was a comment made about the Board of Commissioners not approving this. In fact, we did appear in front of the Board of Commissioners and asked for a continuance of our items so that we could be in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals today. We did want to go in front of the Board of Commissioners with no strings attached, as it were, because we wanted to have the opportunity to present to the Board of Zoning Appeals tonight. There was a comment made by a neighbor about misinformation and disinformation from my company. There's been a lot of confusion about my company being involved with the project in the crossroads called Reverb that promised a bunch of parking, did not deliver on that promise, and they've got folks parking all over the crossroads. That's not my project. It has been confused multiple times. We did a project called Converge at 36 and Broadway that has 400 parking spaces in a garage that already existed. So I just want to clear that up. If that is in fact what the misinformation is, not Reverb, we're Converge. I didn't ask any supporters to be on here tonight. You've heard from our supporters at length. They've all been informed about this zoning appeals parking variance request. I think you would hear the same comments in the same vein as they spoke at Planning Commission as they would here. I don't want to put words in other people's mouth, but it does feel very one-sided with the opposition. So that's why we didn't ask the supporters to be here tonight. You have heard from them.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to Director Hand and get staff comments.
Hey, Mr. Chair, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. There's a couple other questions that I'd just like to quickly clarify before I give my typical presentation. First and foremost, all notices provided to the public do have a line item in English and Spanish that provides Spanish translations. We are in agreement. We are doing everything we can to become a bilingual department and a bilingual unified government. I would note that the Central Area Master Plan was fully translated in Spanish, something that we used heavily in the review of this project for the other entitlements and this parking variance. Secondly, the bulb out was mentioned as part of the design on 6th Street. That bulb out is the one on the west side of 6th Street in front of 16 South 6th Street. That is currently a vacant parcel. So I'm not exactly sure how that would impact anybody's parking in front of their house unless they were parking in front of that vacant parcel. That could be the case. I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified, that that is not in front of someone's existing residence. but could be in front of someone's existing property. And then as it relates to the neighborhood parking district, staff wrote the condition of approval related to the parking district so that we could have flexibility to define that in many different ways. We do believe that there is a way, not like how the applicant described one way to do the parking district, but another way, as one of the neighbors in opposition noted, to do a full sort of Russian Hill parking district that could allow for commercial parking for the commercial business at the old Russian church at the top of the hill. There is a way that we can figure that out, and there is a way that we can move forward and protect the neighbors to preserve their existing parking, as well as add 19 public parking spaces to the mix on all of Russian Hill and on that portion of the Central Avenue corridor. So with those answers, clarifications, I'd like to begin our presentation. Again, this Board of Zoning Appeals parking variance is being heard in conjunction with the change of zone master plan amendment and vacation that were noted earlier. Those other entitlements will be heard at the April 28th Planning and Zoning Committee of the Board of County Commissioners. Again, this parking variance, since we had a lot of conversation, is requesting 136 spaces where 151 are required. That's a variance of 15 spaces. The applicant did note that what we have typically done in instances like this with other parking variances is note the proposed changes to the parking code and what those would look like. Again, just as a point of reference, not as a point of a factor to be considered, but the new parking standards would require one per unit regardless of the size. So that would be 142. Again, that would still require a variance. Just get to my, so again, this is in the central area master plan. Again, right on Alec, Central Avenue and 6th Street. We received no letters in support specific to this parking variance. We did not receive any letters in opposition to this parking variance, although we have heard a lot of opposition tonight, as well as a lot of opposition to the larger project previously. And we do note that all of those things in the staff report. The final development plan, if it were to move forward, the project to move forward by the Board of Commissioners, a final development plan would have to come back through the Planning Commission. And we would be able to address all of the on-street parking, striping, parking district, bulb outs, ADA parking, and other things that were mentioned today as it relates to potential overflow from this project. Staff does recommend approval. If this project is denied tonight, there are two paths forward if the applicant wants to continue on with their project. One, they build more parking in the garage or off-site. Two, they reduce the number and potentially the composition of their unit mix, which could potentially address other issues related to the other entitlements and brought up by the public as it relates to density, intensity, height, and bulk of the project. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Strauss.
Yeah, after listening to, the public comments, and I did actually ride down here to this area, and that street is pretty tight. And I know you're going to build that out. I think my biggest concern are the parallel parking spots in that curb. And then they talked about and I'm looking at it on my other screen here. I know you're trying to find, my biggest concern is that curve right there, the elevation, the wintertime. I get that. And then my other concern is they're talking about the lot across the street. And is that currently a parking lot, or is that currently a residential space that has been torn down, and then we'd have to come back and approve that to be a parking lot? I guess those are my questions and concern with that parallel parking right there.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. As it relates to the on-street parallel parking farther down Alec, staff had requested that parallel parking be provided for the length of the property. And again, because of the access point into the second story of the garage and the access point to the first story of the garage here, their traffic engineer recommended that no parallel parking be striped at those locations. Again, to provide ingress and egress to their parking garage. So that's why they were limited to 5. There is currently not a surface parking lot, if you will, on the vacant parcel noted by the applicant on the other side, which would be the west side of 6th Street across from the project. I believe they are in negotiations with the owner of that property to provide overflow parking if they were to need it in the future. That is not a part of this project, nor does a factor to be considered as part of this project.
Thank you. Commissioner Ernst.
I had trouble with the unmute, sorry.
That's all right.
I won't waste anybody's time. Last month, I was fairly clear that I didn't think it was a good plan. The parking, I feel the same way, although I'm heartened, Gunnar, to hear you talk about a community-wide parking distance that would protect the neighbors. But, and this may be a dumb question, what do we do down the road when this doesn't work? We're making a decision based on good judgment and a lot of research, but we also know that one car per person and a lot of them commuting is kind of theoretical. What can we do down the road if this causes a problem?
Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. I'll say this, parking variance does stay with the ground in perpetuity. So you are correct. The decision tonight will stay with this property for the long run. I think there are different parking management strategies that could be employed. You've heard a couple of them tonight: parking district, decoupling parking, regardless of your thinking behind that, does increase affordability and sort of encourages, while some might say encourages people to park elsewhere, I think it also encourages people to not own automobiles. I believe there's a general trend, generational trend that is foregoing the automobile for a different type of freedom. We see that not reflected in our codes as well. But the short answer is, I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Hi, good evening. I just just listened to people talk about in the opposition, and then they brought some things up I just had some questions about. Somebody brought up a fire truck issue. The way it's currently designed in the plans, would a fire truck have issues getting to the east side of the building in case a fire was in that area? What kind of effect would that have?
Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Let me get back to that site plan to help with that conversation. Again, the applicant is not suggesting or proposing to widen or narrow any of the public rights of way. So the situation will be the same as it was previously or currently.
And is it currently? I'm asking because I don't know. Is it currently a problem for a fire truck to get up it? I heard that comment made, and I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm just trying to verify that.
Our largest fire truck in the UGKC or the KCK Fire Department is, I believe, 16 feet. That's the huge pumper truck, ladder truck, excuse me. It looks like curb to curb, Alec is about 30 feet across. 6th Street is less than that. It's about 25 feet across. That's tight considering a standard parking, parallel parking or parking space in general is 7 by, I think, 15. Okay. So 14 and 30 is 16. It's just squeezing through again, but that is the largest vehicle. I believe fire trucks already would have issues on 6th Street regardless.
Got it. Okay. And then somebody brought up, and I kind of wondered the same thing. You have a 142 units, and most of them seem to be studio or single. Just a single room, but you got 17 double units, but yet you've got less than one. It seems like less than one parking space per unit. And I know we're all trying to get to a world, or it seems like everybody's trying to get to a world where people don't use cars anymore. But that's just not reality right this moment. So I'm curious as to why the developer didn't go ahead and proposed building more underground parking spaces to accommodate his clients. That seems a little odd to me.
Commissioner, am I able to respond to that question?
Go ahead, because staff certainly cannot.
Yeah, cost prohibitive to build any more structured parking. They're about $40,000 a stall. We just can't go down into the ground any farther. You mentioned we're not there yet. We are there yet. I office in a building with 200 units at 12th and Grand downtown. We see it. We see people that own their own scooters that have significant bicycle usage. They don't have a car. There was comments made by the opposition about the number of people that commute. The point of this project is to have urban development for the folks that work in the immediate area, and they would walk to work. I apologize, we didn't have those supporters here. We had a firefighter on. We anticipate many of our tenants to be folks that work for the city, that work at the surrounding retail, that work for KU, that work at the Merc, and they have the ability to walk to work and won't need a car. And that's proven true in North Kansas City, in downtown Kansas City. I was a resident at 8th and Broadway in downtown for 15 years, and I saw that with my own eyes evolve over time. I know it's not here in downtown KCK yet. It's because there's not a project like this that exists. A homeowner certainly is going to have a car. That's the type of person that lives in a home. I am that person now. A person that lives in a very dense apartment is likely to not have a car when compared to a single family home. And so that's why we're comfortable with this. And the last thing I would say is we have to lease the building. I'm fine if there's parking districts in place where you tow every single one of our residents who park on the street. That's typical of urban design. And if they don't want to pay to park in our parking garage, then they shouldn't be leasing a unit in our building. If we get to the point where we don't have enough parking, the answer to the previous question is we're not able to lease units. And so we run 90% occupied instead of the typical 95%. And that's important to know. No apartment building ever runs 100% occupied. You can't do it. There's too many months where there's turns and there's vacancies. So we typically only run 95% anyway. Maybe it's, our fault where the answer is we run 90%, because I would be completely willing to enter into an agreement where there's a parking district on 6th and on Alec and on Central, where you tow a resident after 30 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. And I promise you, if they get towed once, they're not going to do it again.
Okay, and then my very last question. I'm sorry. One of the people brought up the on street, the traffic around the area, especially tonight being backed up. And I know there's an issue right now because 7th Street's being worked on. It's down to a single lane. It's pretty congested. But the traffic study that was done in conjunction with the parking, I kind of see how it's not going to be more congested than it is. It said it was going to be like a light problem for it, but I see it being a pretty heavy problem for it.
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Our third-party review of their traffic analysis came to essentially that same conclusion. We do believe that it would be an impact and would create an impact and an impetus for public improvements at the intersection of 6th and Central. The condition of approval that you all as a body recommended to the Board of Commissioners included that if and when they move forward with the development agreement, that part of their community benefit district would address the funding for a redesign and reconstruction of that intersection to make it safer. That is how we address that issue.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Pauly.
Hi, I was not here last month, obviously, but I did have some concerns that I also wanted to share with everybody regarding the traffic specifically and the parking. Ever since Slaps and those other businesses have gone down in there, it's great. It's very good to see. But getting in and out of Central Avenue at that end, anytime near traffic can really test your patience. And I just can't imagine adding this many units is going to create anything that would be less stressful. And I understand that there can be some improvements made maybe along Central Avenue, but that's still not going to give you the width that I think you would need. And so I feel like maybe this is not the best and highest use for this particular parcel. I think they are really just trying to fit, as much as I love development in my neighborhood, I think they're really just going to be fitting too much into too small of a space. And I want to make sure that we're also taking care of the people who have been living there for the last 15, 20, 25, 30 years and trying to cope with traffic even then, and then telling them, oh, don't worry about it, you'll be fine, and leave them holding the bag of not being able to find a place to park on a Friday night or a Saturday night. So I just wanted to bring those concerns up to everybody and just mention those things because I do live down there. So this really is a place that I know pretty well. And I'm just not seeing, I haven't heard anything that makes me think that they're going to be able to get around the impact that the traffic and the on-street parking is going to cause. Thank you.
Thank you. Gunnar, do you have a comment or response?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Commissioner Beth. Need you to unmute, sir.
Yeah, I was listening to the concerns from the residents down there, and I'm pretty familiar with that area. And my concern also is the access to the fire department, especially with the parking problems. And, you know, it's going to cost money for the city to enforce parking problems on the street to tow cars away. That's a good idea. And, you know, the parking one space for resident is a minimum standard. And it's not really realistic to think that we're going to have a lot of residents down there that don't own cars or that walk to work. It's not 12th and Grand where people are walking to offices to work, and I don't see people at KU walking from 6th and Central. It's just not a realistic expectation of what it's going to do to impact the area. And, you know, they're trying to fit a apartment into a footprint that doesn't fit the parking. And they're wanting to fit the parking to fit the apartment complex. So I think, you know, if they exceed the ability to park on their property, then they're putting the responsibility to manage the parking upon the unified government. And that, you know, the apartment should fit whatever parking they have for their residents. And if they exceed that, then they need to reduce something. Just my opinion on it.
Thank you. Anything else? If nothing else, I will stand for a motion. I'm sorry, Commissioner Strauss.
All right, I'm going to make a motion at this time that we deny the BOZA 2022-016, the plan for a parking variance, just because of staff comments and public comments and safety concerns.
All right, motion has been made for denial.
Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Waters. Mr. Waters.
I just wanted to, I think we need a little bit more denial, since staff made a recommendation of approval. And
I'm sorry, that is correct. So Commissioner
just
Strauss.
citing, oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's right. Commissioner Strauss, the staff recommendation was for approval.
And then just generally saying public opposition is not sufficient. If there are specific things that the public mentioned, you know, I would encourage the members to look at the 5 factors in the report that must be met for Board of Zoning Appeals to be approved. But it needs to be more specific than just public opposition.
Thank you. So if you would please refer to your factors to be considered in your packet.
Well, I will make the same motion of denial. Really concerning factor 2, with especially it's going to affect the rights of the adjacent property owners due to parking. And I know that's one. Safety is a concern for me, and that goes into 4, which is safety and general welfare. So that's my recommendation for denial.
All right, thank you. Motion is made for denial, made by Commissioner Strauss. Commissioner Ernst, do you have a comment, or is that a second?
That's a second for Mr. Strauss.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion for denial before us? Commissioner Pauly?
It's not specifically discussion about denial, but I just want to be clear. Can I vote on this or not? Because I only came in maybe I'm not sure how long you guys had already been talking about it. I got to the meeting late, so I'm thinking I probably can't vote on this.
Mr. Chairman, she was on the call long enough to hear most of the applicant's presentation and all of the opposition.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Beth,
No,
you're voting against the motion?
no, I'm voting for the motion.
Okay, that's an aye then. Ernst,
Aye for the no.
Miller,
No.
Moeller,
No.
Holly,
Aye.
Strauss,
Aye.
Ward.
You need to unmute Commissioner Ward. Your vote is?
Aye.
Chairman, that motion to deny this application for the reasons outlined by the maker passes 5 in favor and 2 opposed.
All right, thank you.
That takes us to our next application, the BOZA 2022-018. Jay Healy with GBA for property at 2600 South 88th Street. Does any member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
No.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, before we move on, we are way past the planning commission. It's time to start. Can you make an
Yes.
announcement?
Yes, I'm sorry. For those of you that have joined us to appear before us tonight for the City Planning Commission, we are running behind with the Board of Zoning Appeals. Once this meeting is concluded, we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll be back to start that Planning Commission meeting as soon as possible. We thank you for your patience. Mr. Healy, are you available? Are you in the audience? Jay Healy, there we go. Okay, I've got you queued up to speak. Mr. Healy, give us your name and address, please, and tell us about your project.
My name is Jay Healy. I'm an employee of George Blair Associates, representing the property owner. Address is 9801 Renner Boulevard. That's in Lenexa, Kansas, 66219. So Pretech is the property owner. They're looking to expand their manufacturing facility. It's an existing facility they have on their property. Currently 7 employees work in that facility, and the number is not going to change with the manufacturing expansion. It's just for a larger piece of equipment. So they're looking to get a variance just to continue using the facility as they currently do.
And your variance, you're requesting tonight is for 53 parking spaces?
That's correct.
All right. Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, we'll go to the public. Anyone in the audience want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request, please raise your hand. I'm seeing none, so we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll go to Director Hannah, get his comment.
Mr. Chair, it looks like somebody raised their hand, but I believe she was speaking on the previous item. I don't know if you want
Correct. Ms. Fernandez, are you speaking regarding the project at 2600 South 88th Street? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hello, I'm sorry, I'm against the proposal. And also I like to see if you can just to go back to my community and see if we can get all these paperwork in Spanish. So
And that was discussed by the director earlier in his comments, but you're opposed also to the project at 2600 South 88th Street?
yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Findorf.
Sorry, I didn't mean to raise my hand if that happened.
Okay, thank you. Anyone want to speak in favor of or in opposition to the request at 2600 South 88th Street? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, I will now close the public portion of the meeting. We'll go to Director Hannah, get his comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. This case is being heard in conjunction with Plan Review 2022-003, which is on the consent agenda of the City Planning Commission hearing later this evening. This is another parking variance before the Board of Zoning Appeals. This is in the Riverview District in a heavily industrialized area. You can see the site plan here. It is a large parcel with a current building that's going to see an extension of that building to the south, and I'll get to the plans here in a minute. But to pause very quickly, as the applicant noted, and as is documented in the staff report, there are only 7 people that work in this entire facility. There is a lot of informal parking, I would say, throughout the site. Again, it's predominantly used for the storage of precast materials built and constructed, manufactured within the facility. The current parking requirement requires 63 based on the size of the building. Again, the applicant's providing 10, the variance is for 53. If you were, as a reference point, if you were to use the new parking code that has not been adopted, but is being considered, the requirement would be 43 spaces required, 10 provided, 33 parking would be their variance. So still pretty large parking variance based on the two. There is a unique situation based on the type of facility here moving forward. Again, we've received, up until this evening, we've received no letters of support, no letters in opposition. Again, we just heard a comment from the public in opposition. There are no notices of violations on this property. Staff has a couple of conditions of approval that we'd like to quickly go over that we included both in this Board of Zoning Appeals variance as well as in the plan review. As the plan review is on consent, I just wanted to mention them here tonight for the record. First and foremost, we're asking that the applicant build all of their driveways to UG standards. That's concrete. We also asked about the tracking of debris into and out of the facility, as we noted a couple of in some of our staff photos. It did appear like some of the some of that material from the operations did intend to sort of track and clog up potentially some of the gutters. So we asked them to clean out the gutters. We did ask for enhanced landscaping. The original approval for this development included a landscape area to the southwest corner. In lieu of that landscaped area, we've asked them to instead create a 2-code screen. In an M3 district, what is required is if you store something up to the property line, you have to have a fully screened fence. Currently, the fence out there is not fully screened. So they're proposing to do a fully screened fence as well as repopulate, replant. It was about a 15-foot buffer zone, if you will, with additional landscaping to replace what the original approved plans included. So kind of transferring that to the public right-of-way to provide a additional buffer, both for noise, aesthetics, as well as dust from a concrete pre-manufactured facility. With that, staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Commissioner Strauss?
Only one, and it's quick. You said that these approvals last for the perpetuity of this particular parcel. If this business in 10 years moves, it still holds the variance that we vote for tonight. I don't think they're going to move, but that's just, I want for clarification.
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Design. That is correct. The variance will stay with the property. And I'm just going to double check one thing. Yes, this is zoned MP3. If there were ever any other change to this facility, that P is a planned district and it has to come back to the Planning Commission. At that time, if any other site changes were to occur, i.e. this property was sold in the future, a new developer came in and changed the site plan, we would have the chance at that point to add conditions of approval related to parking.
Okay, perfect.
Any other questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion. Commissioner Ernst?
With a sense of irony involved, context being the key, I move the Board of Zoning Appeals approve appeal BOZA 2022-018, subject to all staff stipulations.
Motion been made for approval. Commissioner Strauss?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion for approval? Seeing none, roll call.
Beth,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Moeller,
An extremely ironic aye.
Pauly,
Aye.
Strauss,
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve this appeal, subject to the conditions in the staff report, passes 7 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we need to go back to the one that we moved to the bottom of the agenda. That's BOZA 2022-001, Lee Walker for property at 4800 Washington Avenue.
Mr. Walker, are you in the audience? Please raise your hand. I don't see anybody there with that name. Gunnar, how do you want to proceed?
I believe I can provide context and a presentation related to this project that's sufficient for the Board of Zoning Appeals.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Again, my name is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. This BOZA case in front of you is for the projection into a front yard. This is located in the Midtown area of the unified government. Essentially what you have here is a pretty unique parcel. You can see that there is a gracious amount of right-of-way that was not built to what the street is. So you have a relatively small sized parcel where if you lived in that duplex, you would think that your parcel went all the way to the back of curb, as is typically the case. But again, we had when this was platted, it was just platted to have a much more generous T intersection at this location that never materialized. If you'd measure from the property line to the back of curb, that's 25 feet, which is the setback itself. But because the property line is here, we're dealing with just the numbers through this location. Again, this is an R2 zone, so it is an existing duplex. You can see it right here. This project is being rehabilitated by the applicant. And essentially, here's one entrance to the duplex. Here's the second entrance to the duplex. When they build the stairs, wood stairs, and a small deck up to that location, that access to the front door projects 3.5 feet into the required setback accordingly. And that's a rudimentary drawing that they provided to us as well. A couple of pictures here. We've received no letters in support, no letters in opposition. There have been multiple notices of violation related to this property as it relates to, they got a stop work order for this project. They were rehabbing it without a building permit. That's how it came to us. There's also some stuff about weeds and trash in the lawn. All of these things are being remediated through this redevelopment project accordingly. We are requiring that they acquire a retroactive building permit to pursue and continue on with this project, as well as any new building permit that may be required based on the scope of work of that project. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? I'm going to go to the audience. Anyone in the audience tonight want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Please raise your hand. I'm seeing none, so we'll close the staff comment. I'm sorry, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We've already heard staff comment. Once again, any questions for staff before I stand for a motion? Commissioner Miller?
I don't have a question. I'm gonna make a motion.
Go ahead, sir. I don't see any discussion.
Move to approve, subject to staff stipulations and comments.
Thank you. Motion to approve made by Commissioner Miller. Is there a second? Commissioner Strauss, is that a second?
That is a second.
Thank you. So moved and seconded for approval. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Beth,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Moeller,
Aye.
Pauly,
Aye.
Strauss,
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve this appeal, subject to the conditions of the staff report, passes 7 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. That does conclude. I'm sorry, Director Hand.
Before we conclude, I just wanted to make one quick announcement. I'll make it again at the end of the Planning Commission hearing. The unified government is moving back to the commission chambers starting in May. Just wanted to make a note that we are fully planning on opening up at the chambers in City Hall for the next Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
All right, thank you.
It'll still be hybrid. So you still have the option if you don't want to come in.
All right, thank you. All right, that does conclude the agenda for the Board of Zoning Appeals. We will take a 5-minute break and we will start the City Planning Commission. I want to thank you all for your patience in waiting for us to fulfill this lengthy agenda item tonight. So thank you. We'll see you in about 5 minutes. Janet, do we have everyone back?
I believe so.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone to the April 11th meeting of the City Planning Commission. I also want to thank you for your patience as we got through a lengthy Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. My name is Jeff Carson. I'm chairman of the City Planning Commission. I'm going to make a couple of introductions before we start. First off, Gunnar Hand, Director of Land Use and Urban Planning, is with us, along with Janet Parker, who is the Executive Assistant to the Department of Land Use and Urban Planning, along with Byron Toy, City Planning Department staff. James Malloy is in the Unified Government City Hall lobby, greeting our in-person guests tonight. We have Patrick Waters with the Unified Government Legal Counsel, and the following commissioners are present with us tonight. Commissioner James Ernst, Commissioner Susanna Pauley, Commissioner Mark Mueller, Commissioner Dwayne Beth, Commissioner Aaron Ward, and Commissioner Jake Miller, and Commissioner Joseph Strauss. Did I miss anybody? I think we're good. Okay, with that, I will turn the meeting over to Secretary Parker. She will read the opening statement and tell you all how we're going to run tonight's meeting. Thank you.
First of all, Mr. Chairman, since we're in a new committee, I want to welcome Mr. Dwayne Beth, who was appointed by the mayor to the City Planning Commission.
Thank you.
The second thing is that before I read this statement, due to a staff error and due to communication issues between the developer or the applicant and staff, we have 3 items that we would like to add back to the agenda. All proper notices have been sent, and you all received the staff reports. So the first one is plan review application PR 2022-010, Michael Barabam with Hudson Apartments LLC. Final plan review for 228 unit complex at 3600 Rainbow Boulevard. This application was held over by the Planning Commission last month at the applicant's request to work with the staff, which has been done. And I inadvertently forgot to put it on the agenda. I apologize.
Thank you.
The next 2 items are plat 2022-007, David Wingerson, final plat for 1 lot at 200 South James Street. They also have a corresponding plan review PR 2022-012, final plan review for a mixed use residential and commercial development at 200 South James Street. This is the one where there was some communication issues between both parties, so it is ready to be put on the agenda. And we would request that the Planning Commission vote to add these 3 items to our agenda tonight, to the consent agenda, please.
We would need a motion from a commissioner to add this, please, to our agenda this evening. These 3 items. Commissioner Pauley.
Motion to add items to the agenda.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller, is that a second? Thank you. Any discussion on the motion to add the 3 items just read by the secretary to our agenda this evening? Seeing none, roll call, please, Janet.
Mr. Chairman, we can just take an all in favor vote, if that's okay.
Makes it easier for me. All those in favor, wave your hands at me.
Aye.
Any opposed, wave your hands at me. Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll now read the statement for the record. We would like to welcome those participating to the meeting of the City Planning Commission. The members are participating remotely by Zoom webinar. Mr. Jeff Carson is serving as chairman this evening. Please note the following instructions for the meeting. If you are joining by Zoom video, please make sure you have an appropriate background and plan to stay visible during the meeting. Planning Commission members, use the raise your hand feature to speak. After Chairman Carson recognizes you, unmute your microphone and please state your name when you begin to speak. If you need to recuse or if you need a break, use the raise your hand feature. For those in attendance, use the raise your hand feature when you want to speak on an issue. The chairman will recognize you when it is your time to speak. Unmute your microphone and state your name and address before giving your comments. If you have called in by telephone only, or if you are having trouble logging into the Zoom meeting, please email planninginfo@wycokck.org, as Secretary Parker is monitoring that email. Proper meeting decorum is expected of all participating in the meeting, and anyone who fails to act properly may be removed from the meeting. The city reserves the right to discontinue a meeting if any improper behavior occurs, which prevents the uninterrupted conduct of business. The Planning Commission is a voluntary body of citizens which will review each zoning proposal. For all change of zones, special use permits, vacations, and preliminary plan reviews on tonight's agenda, the Planning Commission makes recommendations to the Unified Government Board of Commissioners, who will then make the final decisions on Thursday, April 28, 2022. For final plats and final plan reviews heard tonight, the Planning Commission's decision is final and there will not be another hearing. The format for this meeting is as follows. The applicant will make the opening statement explaining the proposal. Please note that the applicant will be given 15 minutes to present their case. The 15 minutes includes the applicant, consultants, and other members of the applicant's team. Members of the Planning Commission will then address any questions they may have to the applicant. Any persons wishing to speak in favor will be called upon and allowed to do so at that time. Then those persons in opposition will be called upon and allowed to make their statements and ask questions. Please note that each member of the public who wishes to speak will be given 5 minutes to express their opinions. Time may not be shared between speakers. A speaker may request to extend their time, and the Planning Commission may, by 2/3 majority vote, extend any speaker's time in 5-minute increments. The applicant will then answer questions and make a closing statement. The public hearing portion of the meeting will be closed, and the public will only be allowed to address the commission if a question is directed to them. The Planning Commission will discuss the application and make their recommendation. If persons in opposition want to formally protest a change of zone or special use permit, a means is available by a legal protest petition, which can be obtained along with the necessary instructions by emailing the Planning and Urban Design Department at planninginfo@wycokck.org tomorrow morning. Any application receiving a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission will appear on the consent agenda of the Unified Government Board of Commissioners. Unless there is a request to remove an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the Unified Government Commission, or other interested parties, the Planning Commission's recommendation will be adopted. The consent agenda is heard at the beginning of the meeting at 7 p.m. The Planning Commission will also have a consent agenda as part of their meeting this evening. The consent agenda is the first part of the agenda. Items on the consent agenda are final plats, final plans, or special use permit renewals that have received a staff recommendation to approve. Unless there is a request to remove an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the staff, a member of the Planning Commission, or other interested parties, the staff recommendation on all of the items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Planning Commission at one time. I will read a list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the chairman will ask if there are any requests to remove items. This is your time to use the raise your hand feature, be recognized, and request that an item be removed from the consent agenda if you do not agree with the staff's recommendation. The Planning Commission is required to disclose contacts about any item on the Planning Commission agenda. Before each item, I will ask if any contacts have been made, and members of the commission will be asked to disclose those contacts. Please note that your opinions will be forwarded to the governing body for their consideration in making a final decision. In addition, those who receive notices for this hearing will again receive them for the hearing on Thursday, April 28, 2022 at 7 p.m. I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Consideration of the March 14, 2022 City Planning Commission minutes. Special use permit application SP 2022-003. Pete Davis Jr. with Auto Plug LLC. Renewal of a special use permit for a car dealership and auto repair at 1830 Quindaro Boulevard. Special use permit application SP 2022-019, Joe Heydrich with Cactus Bed Properties LLC. Renewal of a special use permit for a short-term rental at 4313 Rainbow Boulevard. Special use permit application SP 2022-034, Dr. Jessica Dane with Piper School District USD 203. Renewal of a special use permit to continue to use a modular building with 8 classrooms serving 190 students at Piper Middle School at 4420 North 107th Street. PR 2022-003, Rodney Ransenberger with GBS. Final plan review for pre-tech warehouse expansion at 2600 South 88th Street. Plan review application PR 2022-010, Michael Barabam with Hudson Apartments LLC. Final plan review for 228 unit complex at 3600 Rainbow Boulevard. Plat 2022-007, David Wingerson. Final plat for 1 lot at 200 South James Street, and that goes with the corresponding PR 2022-012. Final plan review for a mixed-use residential commercial development at 200 South James Street, and plan review application PR 2022-013, Eric Nelson with Family Tree Nursery. Final plan review for a new warehouse at 13820 Donahue Road. The items I have just read are on the consent agenda. At this time, does any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact on any of these items?
No.
Thank you. Please include the following items as part of the record for all of the items on the consent agenda. The city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated April 11, 2022, the application, other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the publications in the Echo for the special use permits, and the notices to property owners. The commission will vote to approve in one vote these items unless someone requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there anyone on the commission that would like an item removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll go to the public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda for special consideration? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, I will now stand for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Move to approve consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Motion to approve the consent agenda made by Commissioner Miller. Is there a second? Commissioner Strauss?
That's a second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the consent agenda items? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Beth,
Aye.
Conley, Ernst,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Moeller,
Aye.
Polly,
Aye.
Strauss,
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve all of the items on the consent agenda, subject to the conditions in the staff report, passes 7 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, the only items that will move on to the Board of Commissioners are the 3 special use permit renewals.
Thank you. And those will be heard again by the Board of Commissioners on April 28th at 7 p.m. at the Unified Government.
That takes us from the consent agenda. It's now complete, and we're going to move on to the non-consent agenda. The first item is change of zone application COZ 2022-012. Matt Tomasic with Police Athletic League. Change of zone from R1B Single Family District to RP5 Planned Apartment District to construct a pickleball court at 800 North 5th Street. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case. The city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated April 11, 2022, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notices in the Wyandotte Echo, and the notices to property owners. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Tomasic, go ahead and unmute yourself, please. Give us your name and address and tell us about your project.
Yeah, I think Jeff Findorf is going to talk on this project, if that's all right.
Okay, let me get him ready for you. Mr. Findorf, you're also ready to go.
Well, I thought our architect, Adam, was going to talk. Is he here on the meeting?
I do not know who Adam is, sir. Can you give me a name?
That would be Adam Weichman. He's on.
Okay, I've got him queued up. Do you want to speak, sir, or do you want to send it on to someone else?
Can everybody hear me?
There we go.
Yeah.
We got one.
The proposed development is the construction of a pickleball court on the north side of the existing facility. It involves a 7-foot fence around the proposed pickleball court and a standard pickleball court surfacing.
And what type of facility is this, Mr. Weichman?
It's a nonprofit facility currently. I think Matt or Jeff could add more to all the stuff that they do at that facility.
All right, that's okay. Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, could we get his name and address, please?
I'm sorry, you're right, and all the confusion of the number of people. Mr. Weichman, I need your name and address, please.
Yes, Adam Wichman. My business address is 2460 East Pershing, B&IM Architects.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the applicant on their project? Seeing none, anyone in the audience want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll go to Director Hand, get his comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. What you have before you is a change of zone from a split zone district. That's where one parcel has two different zone categories on it. In this case, we have RP5, which covers the historic St. Mary's Church, which is used as the Police Athletic League, and R1B, which is the Police Athletic League's garden to the rear of the property to the west. This is in the central area master plan. You can see the property right here at 5th and Ann, and a couple of the accessory structures that are included in the garden portion. We've received one letter of support from the downtown shareholders, as well, and no letters in opposition. There are some old notices of violation on this property, but none of them relate to this project at hand. We do have a couple of conditions of approval, specifically that they match the retaining wall stone. You can see there's a retaining wall on this portion of the property. This is the site plan with the pickleball court just north of the old church. There's also some parking improvements. Essentially, by rezoning this all to RP5, we can bring all of these accessory structures into conformance with the zoning code. And that's another reason why we're moving this project forward with the applicant. There are some other issues related to creating a trash enclosure, making sure that all the driveways match the UG standards, which is concrete driveway aprons, improved driveways there inside of the property. And again, there's some historic brickwork around the property. If you or you may not recall, but previously this property went through a rehab And because it is a state and federally designated historic property, it did go through the State Historic Preservation Office. So from a site plan standpoint, we wanted to make sure that any historic brickwork, brick sidewalks in the property are also preserved as much as possible moving forward. Staff recommends approval.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion. Commissioner Mueller,
Make a motion to approve change of zone COZ 2022-012. I don't have my glasses.
that's all right. Thank you.
With staff stipulations.
Thank you. Is that a second, Commissioner Miller?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion for approval? Seeing none, roll call.
Jeff,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Moeller,
Aye.
Pauling,
Aye.
Strauss,
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of this application subject to the conditions in the staff report passes 7 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard once again on April 28th, 7 p.m. before the Board of County Commissioners.
Our next application is special use permit application SP 2021-069, United Truck Repair. Special use permit to operate an inspection and light maintenance facility for United Truck Repair at 451 South 14th Street. The current special use permit for this did expire on September 28, 2021. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated April 11, 2022, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo, and the notices to the property owners. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, I see you have your hand up. Are you representing the applicant tonight?
I am. So it's Will Anderson, 712 State Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas, representing the guys at 451 South 14th. What we're asking for is the application for renewal of the SUP to be held over for an additional month. We're currently working with the client, going through some engineering design. The cost of to bring that up to code are quite substantial for this company. So we're trying to work out a long-term plan, which we've talked to Gunnar Hand about. So we're asking for another month to consider it. They also have to raise some finance to move forward with some of these things. So in essence, I'm up here asking for the application for renewal of SP 2021-069 to be held over for an additional month.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Director Hand, do you have any questions or any comments?
Our hand director of planning and design. We're okay with the renewal. We would just note that this application has been in process since last September. We are here tonight proposing to recommend denial because we had not received materials for this project. We have been working extensively with the applicant, at which time we set a timetable by which they were going to come to the Planning Commission, which was supposed to be this month. We're fine with 30 days.
All right, thank you. I will go to the public. Was there anyone in the audience that came tonight to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request tonight? Please raise your hand. I am seeing none, so we'll close the public portion of the meeting. The applicant has requested a 30-day holdover. Any questions for the staff from the commission? Seeing none, then I will stand for a motion. Commissioner Miller?
Move to hold over for 30 days.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Ernst?
Yes, sir. Second.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded to hold over this case for 30 days. Any discussion on the motion for holdover? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Jeff,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Moeller,
Aye.
Pauly,
Aye.
Strauss,
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to hold over this application as per the applicant's request until the May 9th meeting passes 7 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. We'll see you next month, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
Our next application is special use permit SP 2022-029 Tina Olanji with 913 LLC. Special use permit for alcohol sales and live music inside and outside the building at 6102 State Avenue. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated April 11, 2022, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo, and the notices to property owners. At this time, does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
No.
Thank you.
Is the applicant present this evening, Tina Olanji, or anyone representing her? Please raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone, so Janet, if we can go ahead and push this to the bottom of our agenda, which will be shortly, we'll just move on to the next case.
Okay, our next case is special use permit application SP 2022-036 Manuel Gonzalez Ferris. Special use permit for an automotive dealership with light repair at 401 Kansas Avenue. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated April 11, 2022, the application under documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo, and the notices to property owners. At this time, does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
No. Okay, Mr. Gonzalez Ferris, Mr. Ferris, are you in the audience? Please raise your hand. I think I've got you unmuted and ready to speak. Go ahead and give us your name, please, and your address, and tell us about your project.
Hi, this is Maria, and I can talk in behind of my uncle, if that okay.
Okay, Maria, what is your name, please?
Maria Leo.
Okay, and you're speaking on behalf of your uncle, and who's your uncle, please?
Yes, Manolo Gonzalez.
Okay, and what's the address, please, for Mr.
It's 401 Kansas Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas 66105.
Okay, can you tell us what he'd like to do at this project?
Well, he be in business more than 8 years already, and he used to be at on Minnesota Avenue before. Now he bought this building, and he just want to relocate his business to the new building.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience come tonight to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request, please raise your hand. And I'm seeing none, so we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll go to Director Hand and get his comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Again, this is a special use permit for an auto dealership located in the Armourdale area. It's just off Kansas Avenue at the corner of Kansas Avenue and 4th Street. This project has received no letters of support, no opposition, letters in opposition. There are multiple notices of violation on the property, but all of those can be fixed through the redevelopment of this property through this project. A couple conditions of approval as it relates to this specific portion of the zoning code for these types of uses that require a special use permit. First and foremost, you can kind of see it in this old picture, but this brick building has since been painted. It is a very specific standard, both in the commercial design guidelines and the special use permit process, that all brick would be removed of paint, rehabbed, and retuck pointed. So we are asking that the the recently painted building basically be removed, that paint be removed as a part of this project. Additionally, we're asking the applicant to add a sidewalk on 4th Street. You can see in this picture right here that they've already started sort of leveling out a 5-foot sidewalk along 4th Street. There's an existing 10-foot sidewalk along Kansas Avenue. We've also asked for enhanced landscaping and an architectural screen fence. The architectural screen fence would essentially be on its, get my bearings straight, north facade and east, north property line and east property line. The rear property line to the south is an alleyway. We are not asking for an architectural screen fence there. But again, some enhanced landscaping along 4th Street accordingly. Again, they've started some of this work already. This is a picture of the rear of the property. We also have some standard conditions as it relates to down zoning. The one issue or point to make is this is zoned M3. You can see there's barbed wire on the fence here. Barbed wire is allowed in M3 zoning, but when they renew that fence with an architectural screen fence, we're asking them to internalize that barbed wire to bring it up to code for new fencing in M3 districts. Staff recommends approval for 2 years.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion. Commissioner Miller.
Move to approve subject to staff stipulations and comments.
Motion to approve made by Commissioner Miller. Is there a second? Commissioner Mueller?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Beth,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Moeller,
Aye.
Pauly,
Aye.
Strauss,
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of special use permit 36 for 2 years, subject to the conditions and the staff report, passes. 7 in favor, none opposed.
Thank you. This case will be heard once again, April 28th at 7 p.m. before the Board of County Commissioners.
Our next application is vacation application VAC 2021-012. Chris McNutt, vacation of right-of-way at 3801 Lloyd Street. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case. The city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated April 11, 2022, the application, other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo, and the notices to property owners. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McNutt, are you in the audience? Anyone representing Mr. McNutt in the audience? Okay, well, this is the last one on our agenda other than the one that we have to come back to, and I don't see that applicant here. Gunnar, do you want to go ahead and give us some information on either one of these cases, or how would you like for us to handle them?
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Design. I believe that I can speak for both cases.
Okay. Which one do you want to start with? We'll go ahead and start with McNutt, since that's the one that's before us.
Agreed.
Thank you.
All right, so this vacation application is located in the Rosedale area master plan. This is adjacent to Fisher Park, right off Lloyd Street. It's adjacent to the new BPU substation just down the hill to the north, if you're familiar. Essentially, after reviewing this project, there's a platted roadway that goes from Minnie all the way through Fisher Park. Staff, as well as the county engineer, believes that road will never get built. So we don't really see an issue here with an extension. If you remember, this property recently received a special use permit for a short-term rental a few months ago. While these two cases are not tied together, they are related in the sense that we are asking as a condition of approval that the applicant redo their driveway. It's not really good in this picture, but basically their driveway is not perpendicular to the street, which is a UG standard. They are well aware that, and we have talked to them extensively about having to relay this driveway and straighten it out in accordance. Essentially, what's going to have to happen is they're going to have to extend their sidewalk, or excuse me, extend the curb just a little bit after the vacation occurs which will then be their property, to straighten this out. It's kind of at a weird angle on the street just because the pavement ended here for whatever reason. There is one condition of approval that staff would like to ask the commission to approve by motion, and that is one of the issues related to, and I'll go back to it so I can reference it. One of the issues related to the BPU substation was fire always wanted this to be a turnaround. And if we vacate the property up to this portion here, up to the property line of the BPU substation, it will not allow for potentially one day coming back in to do a route, a cul-de-sac. So instead of changing the, asking the applicant to go back and change their vacation and the area of their vacation, I would just ask that the Planning Commission add a condition of approval that allows for the future construction of a cul-de-sac if that were ever deemed necessary and funds were ever available by the unified government. We can work it out then.
Thank you. Any questions for staff on this case? Anyone in the audience come tonight to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting and we'll go back to the commission. Any questions, comments for staff? And if not, I will stand for a motion. Commissioner Ernst.
I move the Kansas City Planning Commission recommend approval of petition VAC 2021-012, subject to staff stipulations.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Strauss.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion for approval? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Beth,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Moeller,
Aye.
Polly,
Aye.
Strauss,
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of this vacation application, subject to the conditions in the staff report, passes 7 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard once again, April 28th, 7 p.m. before the Board of County Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, that takes us back to special use permit application SP 2022-029, Tina Olanji with 913 LLC, special use permit for alcohol sales and live music inside and outside the building at 6102 State Avenue.
Thank you. And I don't see Ms. Olanji in the audience. Is there anyone here representing this applicant in this case? Please raise your hand. Again, seeing none, Gunnar, we'll go to you and get your information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. This case is a special use permit specifically for live entertainment. The property recently changed hands. It used to be called the, if you're familiar, the Red Eye Bar, Red Eye Inn. I may have gotten that somewhat wrong. Essentially, Ms. Olanji has bought the property and now wants to allow outdoor live entertainment. We do not need an SUP for the drinking establishment itself because there was not a 2-year gap in business license between the previous bar and this bar. So it is a continuation of use. This SUP represents an expansion of that use to live entertainment. In one of our site visits, we did find out that there was live entertainment happening inside the building. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that this is, and it's noticed fine and will be okay moving forward. But we want to make sure that we clarify that this application is for both live entertainment outside as well as live entertainment inside of the property, inside the building, excuse me. Again, this is in the Midtown area, right off State Avenue. They got a unique situation. This is another one of those instances where the public right-of-way actually goes pretty much all the way up to the building. We have the UG at one point acquired a lot of right-of-way, but if you were the property owner there and didn't know any better, you'd think that you went all the way to the curb. So there's quite a bit of public right-of-way, and we'll get to one of our conditions of approval as it relates to. The other thing to note here is there's a stream in the background. This property is included in a floodway and a floodplain. So there are some conditions of approval as it relates to basically stay out of that floodway at all times as it relates to this use in any building and construction. So a couple pictures of the property. We've received no letters of support, no letters in opposition. The one thing we would note, again, not during the tenure of the new business, which only recently changed hands, but looking back at the violations and police reports, there were quite a few police reports in the former bar, but they were over a very long period of time. So not, I guess, too atypical. We did add standard conditions as it relates to security. We did have KCKPD look at this project specifically, and they were okay with all of our standard conditions as it relates to the security plan accordingly. Again, you can kind of see a de facto outside stage, if you will, that will be enhanced as a part of this project and this SUP proposal. A couple other project pictures of the back of the property and some of the violations, again, as they clean up. This is the site plan. We got a back of the napkin sketch, but essentially it boils down to a few conditions of approval. Specifically, they need a right-of-way permit from Public Works to allow for parking in that public right-of-way, as I showed you in the aerial map image. They also have primarily grass and gravel parking at this location. We're asking them to have an improved surface that could be concrete or asphalt and to restripe the lot accordingly. Again, we mentioned the floodplain standard conditions, the security standard conditions. They're asking that the entertainment end at 1:30. The property is currently zoned C1, which allows for this use, but it also has a specific performance standard that if any outdoor use or any outdoor parking is within 100 feet of a residential structure, not residential property, but residential structure, the use has to end at 1 o'clock. While this is bordered on all sides and across the street by residentially zoned properties, it does not touch a residential zone structure. We asked the applicant when they wanted to cease events outside, and they said 1:30. So that is what this SUP represents, is outdoor entertainment up until 1:30 a.m. Or indoor entertainment. Again, we could entertain or have a conversation about that if we felt that was too much. We apply a bunch of different standard conditions as we relate to other outdoor uses. If it's an indoor, live entertainment, we're asking them to keep the windows and doors closed. We're asking them to prevent any sort of glare or lights intruding onto adjacent properties. All these standard conditions are included in this staff report. Again, staff recommends approval for 2 years.
Any questions for staff on this case? Commissioner Strauss?
Only one. I know this area well because I live right around here. 1:30 for outdoor entertainment in that area, depending on how loud it is. I mean, you might get noise complaints on that. I'm just kind of making the 1:30 outdoors is, do we have anything that's 1:30 in the morning in Wyandotte County? Outside?
We have very few special use permits for outdoor entertainment. So I think that this is a little bit new for us. I mean, honestly, the only comparable that I can think of is like formerly Sandstone Amphitheater, whatever it's called now, but that's a totally different context. Staff would be agreeable if you thought there was a better time to separate the sort of entertainment uses. Now inside, I think going till 1:30 is fine, as long as we keep the door closed. But if we wanted to limit hours of operation on the outside to either, let's say, weekends only and or up to, you call it, I think that we could move forward with that as a trial run. Again, the SUP is for 2 years. If they have an issue, specifically since they're not here tonight, they can always raise that at the Board of Commissioners. This isn't necessarily the final stage, but I would be agreeable to amendment to any of these conditions.
Yeah, I don't per se think we should limit it to weekends, but I think the outdoor music 12 a.m. should be like a cutoff for that, and then like 1:30 indoors. I just think you're gonna limit the noise, the complaints from the neighborhood that's right there. I think Coronado Hills, I think, is kind of right around there, and then across the street it kind of goes up. But I think you're just gonna limit some future problems if we shut off the outdoor at midnight, and then we keep the indoor. They can go till 1:30. That's just my comment or question or whatever that was.
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Design. I think that's a good amendment. We would have to take that by motion to move forward with it.
Correct. Any further questions for staff? Seeing none, I will stand for a motion, and Commissioner Straws, is that something you're wanting to make?
Yeah, let me find that number. Can you scroll your page up? I was trying to keep up with the with that. There we go. If I could get a, do I have to do the motion first for the amendment, or do I do the whole?
You can just make your motion to approve and then make the added stipulation that if you want to change the hours or whatever it is that you want.
Okay, so I move to approve, subject to staff stipulations, with the amendment of outdoor music being limited to end at 12 a.m. Indoor music can continue till 1:30 a.m. And that's my motion.
And that was nicely done, sir. I was going to stop you when I thought it was done because it was so perfect. I didn't want you to mess it up, but you ended well. Is that a second, Commissioner Muller?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So moved and seconded for approval with the added stipulation made by the maker of the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Beth,
Aye.
Ernst,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Polly,
Aye.
Straws,
Aye.
Ward.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of SP 29 for 2 years, subject to the conditions in the staff report, with the amendment that the live entertainment outside will cease at 12 o'clock midnight, and the live entertainment inside will cease at 1:30 a.m. Passes 7 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. Director Hand, do you have a comment?
After you say your last piece about the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, this application will be heard once again, April 28th at 7 p.m. before the Board of County Commissioners. And now back to Director Hand.
2 quick things. Again, just a reminder that the chambers, the commission chambers will be open for the May City Planning Commission hearing. We will continue with a hybrid schedule. I will be downstairs. Ms. Parker will stay upstairs running all the virtual stuff. You're welcome to come in and attend in person. Instead of doing the lobby, we'll basically have public comment for anybody who walks in council chambers again. So this is our return to normalcy. The first Board of Commissioner hearing that will be held in person will be the 28th. I forgot to mention that a little bit earlier. So I will be downstairs on the 28th if anybody cares to watch that show. And then the second thing I wanted to mention, I just kind of wanted to float this by everybody while we have a full commission. Not everybody was in attendance, but we do finally have a full commission in my 2 years here as the Director of Planning and Urban Design. So we're really excited about that. I wanted to see if we all felt that potentially this fall, like we did 2 years ago, we were thinking it would be a sort of biannual schedule. I wanted to give us enough time to start planning ahead. I wanted to see if everybody would be agreeable to another Planning Commission training sometime this fall, now that we're fully stocked.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so we've been doing the individual stuff as new members come on, but now that we're full, I think we'll kind of prepare a larger training for those of you who were here 2 years ago for our last training. It won't be too dissimilar, but we do have a lot of new members, and we'll try to organize a little bit different agenda to keep it fresh and entertaining for everybody. So we'll work on that, and we appreciate your input. So that's it for me. We'll be quiet now.
All right, as long as legal counsel's there, I'll be there. Okay, anything else for the good of the order? Thank you all. Glad to be getting done early tonight. And with nothing else, we will adjourn.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Whoever the newbie is, you got off light on your first one.